Last Looks crew. It is said that when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. I'm not sure if that counts in the film industry, but barber and hairstylist Stacey Morris's career is a vibrant testimony of this philosophy. My name is Jamie Lee, an LA-based hairstylist working in the film industry, and this is the Last Looks podcast, a show where I catch up with makeup artists and hairstylists working in the film and television industries around the world. And today we're going to hear more about Stacey Morris's innovative approach and hands-on knowledge that has led her to work with musicians and celebrities. She has already left a huge mark in the industry by creating distinct hairstyles for icons like Kid and Play and so many more, which has established her position in the industry. And since speaking to her for this episode back in 2020, Stacey has been nominated for an Oscar as the hair co-designer for Coming to America. Stacey's work speaks volumes of her dedication to her craft. And in this episode, we chat about that crucial role of adaptability and learning in the industry. Stacey shares her journey and offers valuable insights for those looking to enhance their skills and stay relevant in the industry. She encourages you to step out of your comfort zones, broaden your skill sets, and foster creativity and growth. If you missed it back in June 2020, not to worry, it's here again. But before we kick into it, I wanted to tell you some exciting events we have coming up. Do you ever get to the end of these episodes and you want to know more? Like you have more questions you want answered? Well, this is going to be your chance. It's called Top 10 Talkback. I know, what the hell is that? Let me explain. Now, every episode of the podcast has X amount of downloads or listens, and I've pulled our top 10 downloaded guests from the podcast, and we will be bringing them to you the first weekend of every month for the next 10 months. And you guys get to ask the questions this time. The events will be live virtual Q&As, asking our top guests your questions. And don't worry, if you can't make the live event, everyone that purchases a ticket will get a recording of the event to be able to watch whenever you want. So I've popped a link in the show notes below, a link in bio of Instagram at lastlooks.crew, and on our website, last-looks.com. Okay, enough from me babbling on. On this rerun episode, we catch up with Stacey Morris, or you may know her as Stacey Cuts. On with the show.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
M.Y.O Cosmetic cases are the preferred safety touch-up system for pro makeup and hair artists. As makeup and hair professionals, we are constantly having to carry an endless amount of products in our kit, always in search of new ways to condense our kits and increase efficiency on the job. M.Y.O Cosmetic cases offer on-set touch-up kits that hold multiple types of makeup, helping you save valuable touch-up time on set, keeping your makeup safe and hygienic for talent, and significantly lightening your travel and set bags. They also offer depotting storage palettes in various sizes that assist to reduce weight and bulk in professional artist kits. A committed and globally verified environmentally conscious company, M.Y.O Cosmetic Cases allows you to feel empowered that when using our products, you are committing to save the planet one small act at a time. Join the M.Y.O movement today at myocosmeticcases.com. M.Y.O Cosmetic Cases, meticulously designed with pros in mind.
And now, our feature presentation.
Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Hi, Stacey. Welcome to the Last Looks podcast.
How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good.
Hey, so I would like to start with you finishing a sentence for me. Okay?
Okay.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Stacey, and when she grew up, she wanted to be
a veterinarian.
Aha! Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we move from being a vet to being a hairstylist?
I think my whole life has been kind of serendipitous in the sense that I've been put in certain places and positions and had access to certain resources that allowed me to just explore them. And those explorations just took me in different directions.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to be a vet.
Did you have a lot of pets growing up?
Yes, always. Yes. My parents, they were pretty over it, but they supported what I was in love with.
Of course.
My whole high school career was geared towards, getting set up to be accepted at a predominant school for what I wanted to do. And when I finished high school, I was like, I don't want to go through all that school. And I was actually already kind of engaged in hair, and at the time, of course, being young, you're like, money right now, immediate money. I'm making money. Okay. So it took me in a different direction, and I bargained with my parents, who were not happy that I was not going to continue with school. I did 2 years, and then, that was the bargain. They said, well, do 2 years. And if you decide at that time that you want to do something else, then we'll allow you to have that freedom.
Yeah.
And so I did the whole 2 years with my mind set on, let me just get this done so I can go live my life.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So you'd made your decision. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. So when you say that you were already kind of doing some hair stuff, how did that come about?
Well, I started doing hair when I was about 12.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that was like, I would say about 81 or so, and I had brothers. I grew up with brothers, and I was barbering, and I started doing them. My mother would cut their hair, and if she messed it up, she would just cut it all one level, neat, and send them out the door. And I looked at that, and it was intriguing to me, just the artistry of it. And it's just fun. It has a gratifying thing when you cut hair, and you cut it off and you change it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do it. And I was like, well, if I mess up, I can just do what she does and just run a clipper over it one length, and no one will be mad at me,
Yeah. You didn't have that fear of messing up. You're like, I'm just going to try this and see what happens.
Yeah. And so I started experimenting with their hair. And at the time, styles were changing and getting really innovative. And, they were a bunch of different looks, and people were trying different things back then. If you look at the hip hop era, rap music had just came out, and people had a new type of expression, and they were expressing themselves through, whether it was through their makeup, Boy George, or through their hairstyles, or through their clothing, so it was like there were no boundaries. So we could try and do anything. And I kind of got whisked into that. And my brothers would go to school with these different haircuts, and people would be like, oh, who cut your hair? Oh, your sister? Oh, can she cut my hair? Before you knew it. Yeah, it was like, it just spread like a brush fire. I had clients at 12 years old.
Oh my goodness. And they must have been so happy that their little sisters like cutting their hair. That's awesome.
Right. And I was a little more gracious than my mother was. My mother would try to do something, and if it didn't work, just cut it off. And with them, they'd be like, oh, try this, or can you do that? And we'd actually try it. So it was a little bit more fun for them to have me try to do their hair. And that's how that all started.
That's cool. So then when you've done your 2 years of studying that you needed to do to keep your folks happy, what did you step into after that? Like, did you go and do formal training or anything like that? Or? Well,
it's kind of interesting, because by the time that 2 years was over, I literally had a revolving clientele. I obviously wasn't working in a salon or anything like that. It was kind of like a little underground situation. I'd cut hair wherever I could cut hair, someone's house, out the kitchen, the living room, wherever. But I had a pretty predominant clientele. And because my biological father, as well as my stepfather who raised me, and my mother were all in the entertainment industry. Okay. So my life and our homes were frequented by celebrities, in the music industry. And that's, what happened. Like, I'd start doing people that were known, performers and artists. And I literally had a celebrity clientele straight out of high school.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. So what happens from there? You've finished your studying, then you've already got this full clientele. When do you start doing film work?
Well, it was years after that. I was doing that. The basis of my clientele was mostly musicians.
Yeah.
And so I was doing a lot of, performances and videos, and I was touring around the world with these different artists. And eventually, at some point, it leaked into like film and television, and I was having, actors and different people like that asking, could I do their hair? And I was doing their hair. I'd like do their hair before they went to set, or sometimes they'd sneak me in their trailer and, doing different things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the artist Kid and Play.
Yes, of course they do.
Yeah, so I spearheaded that high top fade.
That's amazing. Let's stop and appreciate that for a little moment, because that is very, very cool.
Thank you. And then when he changed that and turned it into the dreads or twists that he wore, I did that. And I actually worked on those movies, House Party, but I wasn't licensed. I wasn't in the union. I didn't even know what that was. You know what I mean? And it was it was a little looser back then. These guys were star requesting me. And so I was working on these productions. And eventually, the union was like, are you going to become a member? And it was like, well, what is that?
You're like, what does that mean?
Yeah. And I'm like, well, what does that entail? And when I saw the guidelines, you have to have your cosmetology license, and you have to do this and you have to do that. I said, okay, well, let me, go to school. And I tried to go to school several times. And every time I would enroll and pay my money, I forget what it was back then, maybe $5,000, $7,000. Something would take me away and I wouldn't finish. Yeah. I'd literally be asked to go on tour in Europe, and
you're like, I can't give that up.
Yeah. And it was an age thing too. Oh, fun, money now, and I didn't even completely understand the benefit of being in the union, so it kind of took a back seat. But eventually I got that complete and, finally joined the union. I was working with Eddie Murphy, I believe, since I was like 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I had a lot of people wish they were in that position. They've done everything right. They have their license and they don't have that opening to get in. I had it all in front of me and I just was like, for what? You're
like, but I'm doing okay. What do I need that for?
Right.
But I imagine once you got in, that must have opened things up more for you, right? In that industry anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was a lot of weight off of my shoulders, that's for sure. Because it did get to a point where it was like, well, she can't be in a trailer and you got to, she has to do your hair over here. And you know what I mean? And that pressure was lifted, and then when I really got into it, I have insurance benefits and I'm working on a pension and, okay. Then I understood it.
That's awesome. So do you remember what your first full-time gig was when you were in the union?
Oh, let me see. It had to be, feels like a century ago. I believe I got in the union after Eddie did Nutty Professor.
Okay.
I believe I did my hours on that. So whatever his film was after that, because at the time he was doing back-to-back films.
Maybe so, Dr. Dolittle, maybe?
Yeah, it might be somewhere around then. Yeah, and then I finally joined the union. I was on a waiver for Nutty Professor.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, Life.
For Life.
It was Life. So whatever came after Life, yeah. Okay. When I did Life, I was working I had a waiver and I worked that film and got my days, and then I joined shortly after that.
So how was that working? You were getting them right before you were in the union, you were getting them ready and then kind of having to just pass over to somebody else to look after them throughout the day. Was that a little nerve-wracking at times? You're kind of like, ooh.
Not necessarily, because I wasn't fully engaged in understanding the whole film and television, thing. And so it was okay for me. And then sometimes I would stay on set. I would just stay, because most times I was a personal, so I would stay in their trailer, You understand? I wouldn't be in the hair and makeup trail. I wouldn't be on set because of the insurance and liabilities and things like that. But they would sometimes have me, standing by. And then, when I did Life and I was on a waiver, it felt wonderful to be able to be a part of the production,
Yeah. See how it all works on the inside while they're shooting. And that's very cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's so amazing, all the stuff that you worked on before you were in the union. Like you did Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you did Independence Day, Martin, Bad Boys. Wow. That's amazing.
The union knew of me well. They knew of me well. I'll never forget when I went in to finally, pay my initiation to join. They said, we thought that you weren't a real person. Like production was making up this name, Stacey Morris, to get an extra check on production because they kept offering me to join. And I was like, I'm okay. But for years, I was busy working. And for years I knew, I had to get a cosmetology license. Like even today, barbering, a barber's license, you don't join the union under hair. With a barber's license, you have to have a cosmetology license, Yeah. And I'm glad I did that because there's a lot of things that come with that. And then I wouldn't have thought that they would be utilized now, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm guessing, did you have to change your skills a little for the cosmetology license just to add different hair skills that you maybe hadn't done before, or you?
No, not actually, because it's interesting. Like I told you, I started cutting hair on my brothers, and that was like cutting, like barbering.
Yeah.
But I've always had the skill of being able to do hair, always. And I kind of had the training every summer. I would work in a salon.
Oh, cool.
A full-on salon in New York. I was an assistant, but as you know, in some of the salons, the assistant does everything up until the styling or the haircut, So, and I was lucky enough to be trained and working under someone that was so amazing and so proficient and was teaching me all the proper ways to do everything. When I actually went to cosmetology school, I was so bored. It was literally everything I knew already, everything I had been doing already. It was just a matter of putting the hours in and going and passing my test, you know? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad you did it. I'm sure you are too. I just have to say that being a teenager at the time because I'm from New Zealand.
Okay.
We had 3 TV channels, 1, 2, 3. And I loved watching the Fresh Prince and Martin.
Right. Yeah.
Fresh Prince was on like every day, like an early evening kind of show. But then Martin was playing at like 10:30 at night for a while. And
wow.
I just love those shows. Those are so much fun.
Yeah, those were so much fun, and they're definitely milestones of my career.
That's very cool.
And still have relationships and work with those guys to this day. So it's amazing how much time has passed by, Yeah.
And they're still going for it. Everyone's doing well. It's awesome.
Yep.
Same with Eddie Murphy, actually. I grew up, I don't even understand why my mum was letting me watch like Raw and Delirious and
I say the same thing.
But it was amazing and just grew up loving Eddie Murphy. And I remember we had Beverly Hills Cop on VHS, and I just played it over and over again. I just loved it so much.
Yeah, it's a trip for me to end up, working with him. And of course, when you're young, like we were, he's like a grown person. You never would imagine, you know what I'm saying? But as you get older, the kind of age gets closer and closer together. And, we would sneak and watch him. And I never imagined in a million years I'd end up working for him at 18.
And have such a long working relationship too. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. And back then, a woman doing a man's hair, it was, it had a little thing, a little undertone to it. And I kind of broke through all of that stuff. And that's a funny story with our relationship because he was like, no way. And I actually did his hair on a bet. and have been doing his hair ever since.
What do you mean on a bet? So he was, no way I'm not letting a chick do my hair? Or
He said, no way, not in a million years. And a friend of mine who at the time was dating him said, I'm telling you, you gotta let her do your hair. Like she's special. And he was not for it. And one night he needed a haircut and she was teasing him. And she said, well, what are you going to lose? And he said, okay. And she was like, I bet you if she cuts your hair, you're never going to turn back. And he said, okay, tell her to come up here. Tell her to come cut my hair and I'm going to pay her $500. And I was over the moon, you know? I was like, $500? Yeah, I'm there. And I cut his hair and I've been cutting his hair ever since.
See, at the time when that happened, you probably would have been happy just for the 500 and walk away and never see him again.
Exactly.
It's awesome. So when you're working on something like The Nutty Professor and he is playing, how many characters? Like 6 or 7 or something? So were you doing the wigs and everything for all of those looks for him?
Most of those I did consult and was involved in the process, but most of that stuff is prosthetics and they handle everything. Right. You know what I'm saying? But we would talk about it and they would create it and obviously do it. And then I would deal with him when he was playing himself. Yeah. You know, and he, for whatever reason, he'd come to me, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? You know what I'm saying? And I'd give my input and they would take it from there. And that's progressed too. That's changed. You know, we just did Coming to America and I got to work with Mike Marino and I was pretty involved in the process. And it was interesting because it showed how I've progressed and how my career and my input has progressed when it comes to those types of things with the prosthetics and the hair and, you know, all of that.
And just knowing how it all works so you have a bit more input.
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah. Man, if you look from Nutty Professor to now, my knowledge is immeasurable, you know?
Yeah. And how have you done that? Is that just through experience and watching other people that you're working with and picking up tricks and stuff like that? Or yeah,
absolutely. I'm like the master observer, and if I can see it, I can do it, and if I can't see it, I figure out a way to create it, you know? And so being able and having access and being able to be in the room for stuff like that is like priceless to me, you know? And so just over the years, watching, learning, observing, putting my hands on it, doing it, trying it, all of those things contribute to knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. When's Coming to America coming out? Like you guys have shot that and it's due to come out in the next year or something?
That is supposed to come out December.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah. How was that for him going back to that character? Did he have fun?
I believe he had fun. Yeah. It was a little hard. We didn't shoot in town.
Okay. It can be tricky.
He's pretty much, a creature of habit and he likes his comfort zone. So being uprooted and taken to Atlanta in the middle of the hot summer wasn't so fun. And then, and then there were a lot of prosthetic makeups and a lot of characters and things like that. You know, some of those makeups took 8 hours, you know, and you shoot for 2 or 3 and then the process of taking everything down, you know. But once he's in it and doing it, I think is when he finds pleasure in it.
Yeah. And it must be good for him to have someone like you there that is a stable person throughout his life, that he's just got that person to bounce off and have there. Like, especially when you do personal work and stuff like that as well, I'm sure being that person for your actor it's pretty important.
Oh yeah, you become more than just, their stylist or makeup artist or hair person. It's a support team. It gives them a sense of their surroundings so that they can go perform, and that was definitely evident on this one. He's pretty loyal. Most of his people that are with him, have been with him for 20 plus years, and it speaks volumes.
That's awesome. So you on Sons of Anarchy and Roots, and you've been all over the place, lady. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I noticed on your IMDb that it had a credit in Roots for hair special effects. What did that mean in that particular case?
Well, that was interesting. They had shot that series, and I believe they had a break in production, and the actor went back to, I believe he lived in London. He went back to London, and he got another job, and he cut his hair. And then they said, okay, we're back. And his hair was completely different than what they had shot.
Yeah.
And they searched around trying to figure out, how can we match what we've already done? Now, his hair was cut off low, but in the production, I don't know if you've seen it, he had some kind of natural, just knotty, kind of hair. Of course, the movie is based around slavery, and so they were like, how do we achieve this look? I hear that they had gone through a couple of people and they were trying to come up with wigs. And I don't know how they got my name, but they called me and they said, we need to recreate this hair. And I was like, okay. And I had no idea how I was going to figure it out. But I sat and I figured it out, and I literally loose laid that hair on his head, and we did it every day for the rest of the production. In the beginning, it literally took us, I did a camera test myself, and then they wanted to do a camera test. They flew here and we did a camera test, and they were like, okay, this will work. And then I perfected it. It's happy accidents. Like in the process, you learn, oh, well, we can cut this out, and we can do this and we can do that, and to get it to here. And I literally figured out how to do it. And in the beginning, it took 8 hours to loose lay that hair for it to look, because it's different when you're creating something from scratch opposed to it has to match exactly,
Yeah.
And by the time it was said and done, we had the process during the shooting week down to 2 hours. And I had to have an assistant. Yeah. And they flew us to New Orleans, and we finished the production there, which was another hot, swampy, mosquito-ridden production.
So you're just needing to stay on top of that. So just to be clear, for anyone not understanding the loose laying, it's pretty much hand laying the hair onto the head, right? So every time you do it, you get to the end of the day, you have to clean all that off.
Right.
And the next day you start again.
Right.
And match continuity. So that's a task within itself. It's not just sticking on a wig or a piece or something like that. Wow.
And we visited that idea trying to think, but it wasn't going to work. There was no way to create a wig that would look authentic and match what was already done. It had to be done by hand, and I would lay the whole head, and then I would meticulously, lay his hairline and the bits, around his neck and things like that.
So were you letting his hair grow out underneath that, or would that make it too difficult to then glue onto?
As we were shooting, we said we're not going to cut. We're just going to alter as we go, according to how his hair grows and how it changes what we're doing. The hair growing, of course, helped, but it never grew out to what we needed to be. No. But it helped. Yeah. I would spend every night, because this was done so last minute. So I would spend every night making those little, knotty balls in all different sizes and putting them into containers. And the way that I learned to make them look so real was when I did the test, and then we were finished, I had the guy and I said, okay, let's take it off. I took it off, I loosened it. I washed his hair, and to prevent them from going down the sink, I blocked the sink and collected all of these pieces. And then I just put them on a towel and they dried. And the next day I said, wow, just the moisture of the water made it fray and it looked natural. So I was like, that's what we got to do, because when I roll them up and they were so tight, it just looked so contrived and so made. So I would literally make them. Me and Conrad Hilton, we got together and we're rolling hair. And then we'd spread it all out and spray it with water and let it fray and dry.
Right. Just so it's not so polished and done. and
Exactly.
style. Right.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
exactly.
awesome. I love those happy accidents of kind of working that stuff out. And
Right.
thank goodness you had that moment to actually do a test to figure stuff like that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes those tests are so important.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel like the testing times are just getting smaller and smaller and disappearing.
Yeah, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
No, we need it. Come on.
We're flying by the seat of our pants.
Totally. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Dolomite Is My Name your first having a go at department heading with Carla Farmer?
I department headed a smaller show, but it was a TV show. But
Okay.
yeah, as far as a film, it's funny because being a personal and when like Eddie Murphy depends so much on his people in all different areas. I feel like I'm not a hair person when I'm working with him. I have so many job titles. You're involved in department heading. You know what I mean? But I've never wanted the title or the responsibility, although I've been in it so long that I know how to department head,
Yeah.
And for this project, he actually asked us if me and Vera Steinberg, who's his makeup artist, if we would department head.
Okay.
And I said, well, how do you tell him no?
Yeah, exactly. But also, I mean, thank goodness you're in that kind of situation. I'm sure it was helpful to do the co-department head thing because at the same time, he's obviously needing a lot of your attention. So to have somebody else there to kind of, pick up each other's slack or whatever, bits and pieces like that must have been really helpful. I think co-department heading sometimes is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was so important to co-department head because on that movie it was so big and we had so many background and so many artists and so many different, the whole movie was wigs, Yeah. And I said for one person, I mean, I would just be half dead by the time that film was over. If we didn't have each other. And then, like you said, I'm attending to him and, I just didn't want anything overlooked. And I'm so meticulous and he's so meticulous.
Yeah.
And this project for him was a passion project. He's been wanting to make this project for like 15 years, So I was like, we have to do this way.
Yeah.
And we went on to do Coming to America the same way. We had a really big cast. And it can be done, but it's a lot of work for one person.
Oh, yeah, it is. I have to say, thank goodness he finally got it made because it was awesome.
Yeah, and we did it in the nick of time.
It was, I have to say, being a Eddie Murphy fan, it was nice to see him doing a real grown-up movie. Like, because he did a lot of kids, family-friendly films for a while. And I was like, yeah, these are great. But I want the guy that swears. Like, he's amazing.
Right. And he's still that guy.
Yeah. In my own selfish little way, I'd been waiting for that to come through.
Yeah.
Waiting for that to come back. It was so good. You guys did a great job. I really enjoyed watching
Thank you. Thank you.
So I imagine you still have a clientele that you are doing on the side as well as film work. Is that right?
Yeah, I've always maintained, regular clientele. And then, even in the industry, I have a bunch of my celebrities that I do on a personal level. And I've always done that. Not that I need to per se, for financial reasons, but for me, that's where I came from, It's like the grassroots. And we, in film and television, we create these looks and we put them on TV and it becomes the in thing or the trending thing, but it really comes from the real people, the regular people. And so for me to stay abreast and to stay proficient and practice and experiment, I have to stay in that. That's just my thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I was going to ask you, for hairstylists that are in the film and television industry, I've come across a few that really their strength is not with men's grooming or hair cutting.
Right.
And they're always kind of, I guess, wondering how they can strengthen that up. And I'm always just saying, man, you need to get a Saturday job at a barbershop or something. Like, because I always just thought, like, I worked for years in salon and stuff like that. And it's the repetitive nature of doing the work that then I think you build that skill level and confidence of just, doing haircut after haircut, kind of getting in there. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that? How people can strengthen that?
I mean, that is it. You just said it, like honing your craft, working on it over and over and over. Practice makes perfect. That's like a typical saying, but it's so true, and I believe, that's how I got where I am, just doing it repetitive. And I've said this before, Will, he's so prophetic. He said something that has stuck with me, and it's that talent you have naturally, but skill is only developed by hours and hours of beating on your craft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very, very true. And I always feel a little, I don't know if I feel sorry or sad for people who they've kind of done cosmetology school and then kind of somehow just boom, they're in the union and they're doing stuff. And it's just like, whoa, okay. And you see them struggle with just sometimes what I would consider something reasonably simple with hairstyling, but if they haven't, as you say, like done it over and over again, it just that strength isn't there. There's courses and workshops and things for barbering and stuff like that, but I guess at the end of the day, it's up to them, right, to follow through to actually go out and do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
After they see how it's done, like put it into action.
You have to execute.
Yeah. Exactly. Also, for barbers getting into film work, what are some words of wisdom? Do you feel like they should broaden their skill set as far as hairstyling goes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm the perfect example of that. I'm specialized in barbering, but I've explored everything, and I don't know. I kind of believe if you just stay in one position and do the same thing, that's as far as you're going to go, and you have to step out of your comfort zone. And that's where the creativity comes in, Yeah. And so I try everything. I even want to learn how to do a little bit of makeup just to know how to do it, All of those things are just fun to me. Yeah. I'm
guessing that would have been fun watching Mike with Coming to America with all the prosthetics and all that type of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel so blessed and honored to be able to, in my career, I've, sat with Rick Baker and, many other people. And Mike now that's amazing to just be in the room, from start to finish, from casting to, developing the prosthetic pieces and the application and just watching it right before your eyes just come to life is amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool. What do you think has helped you stand out in your profession?
I think it's my consistency, in the industry. If I was to think about that, I would have to talk about what I hear other people say, and it's just my body of work. I've done so many things for so long and been so predominant in what I do for so long. So yeah, my body of work, I've done everything.
Yeah. I know, looking at your IMDb, I'm just like, yeah, as I said, this girl gets around. She's done all sorts of stuff. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. It was exciting to do because I've done live TV, but it was exciting to go and have that experience with Eddie doing SNL.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man, that was amazing.
So how did that work?
That's a whole nother avenue. That is a whole nother beast and machine within itself. But just being able to be there and see how it works and see the people work, and I have so much respect for them. They do that every week, and it moves fast. It's live. It's for real live, like seconds,
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. And then, I grew up watching him sneaking at night, watching him on TV. And it was like, wow, I'm in the building. And to see him walk through there, and there were people who were still there that worked and were like, hey, how are you? Like from when he was basically a kid working on the show,
Wow.
you know? Yeah.
That's so amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a piece of history right there. It's incredible.
Only thing I haven't done yet is theater.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I'm sure there's time. You're a busy lady. You can fit it in somewhere. Maybe he can do a live piece.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. Hopefully, I hear he's doing a stand-up show. That might be interesting. Cool. Yeah.
Everyone will love it. Tell them it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I was just going to ask you, what's the best single piece of advice you've been given as you've been coming up in your career? Something that's really stuck with you.
If you're part of the process, you're making progress, you know? So put yourself in those positions, be a part of it in some way, somehow, and being a part of the process, you're making progress towards whatever it is that you're trying to achieve or be or become or learn, you know. So just being a part of the process. And that's basically how I've pretty much gotten to where I am, just being a part of the process, no matter how little or how big, it all adds up.
Yeah, I guess it's just welcoming that collaboration, right? Instead of going, no, I can do everything myself. Thank you very much. It's welcoming. Those people exist.
Yeah, they do. That's so not me.
No, I can hear that already with what you've been talking about. You really love to get in there and work as a team and learn from others and just open. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's essential.
Absolutely. So have there been any new skills that you've been working on learning lately?
Not so much learning, but just perfecting. A lot of times, you know, I have, if I'm doing characters, I have to do some facial stuff. You know, if I'm doing someone personal, they want me to do it. Just, you know, learning that stuff. There's a lot of outside of the TV world, as far as styles go now, there's a lot of different styles happening with the comb overs, and, you know, people are blowing hair out and using hot tools and putting these, you know, innovative, you know, hair sprayed ridges and different things in the hair, and just trying to learn all that stuff. You know, I don't know if I would use it, you know, on a weekly or daily basis or even at work, but just knowing how to create that stuff, it looks cool. You know, when I see something that looks cool, I want to know how to do it.
Absolutely. All of that sounds amazing.
Yeah, well, I spend a lot of time surfing around on Instagram like, wow, look at this, you know? Yeah.
So when you're doing stuff like Dolomite is my name or just anything, what are some of your favorite sources for like research?
I mean, as you know, it just depends on what you're doing. Like on Dolomite, you know, that was a period film. So a lot of the research, I mean, I was kind of around during that time. I don't know if I was paying attention to hair, but, you know, I have aunts and uncles and my mother and that were in that period, picking their brains, looking at their photo albums, you know, going to the library, searching around the internet, you know, just looking at real authentic pictures and trying to imitate and emulate the looks from that period. You know, but it just depends on what you're doing, what the project is. The beauty of Coming to America is it's fictional. You know, even though a lot of it was Africa, it was fictional. So we had the freedom to kind of create new stuff, new looks. Like they didn't have to be indigenous of something that really existed, you know, but we did use some of the African hairstyles and stuff as inspiration and just got creative. And it's now, you know, that film is now, it's current. And now things are so, you know, innovative and different and new that we got to kind of put in like a Afro punk type of look, and you know what I'm saying? So it was cool. We had a lot of freedoms and we had a lot of fun. But then with that, you can't just go buy that stuff. We had to make all that stuff.
You're building stuff from scratch. That's so cool that you can just have, I mean, every job is different, but I think it's so much fun when you get that one that you just have so much creative freedom and you can just kind of get in there and I don't know. It's like art class. You're like arts and crafts. Let's go. Let's glue this to that, and let's make this shape, and let's.
Yeah, and that's the
so
beauty
cool.
of art. There are no boundaries, you know? Yeah.
That's very cool. So when you're putting a team together, like the times that you have headed departments, what are you looking for in your team members?
For one, for me, I'm looking for someone who is attentive. I'm looking for someone who works with order and precision and is meticulous, you know, because I'm like that. So I don't want to have someone on my team that I have to babysit for those things. When you're a team, everyone's good at something else, but whatever it is that they're good at, you want to be able to depend on them for just that, you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, you might as well do it yourself. Of course, skill level, skill set, professionalism, you know, all of those different things matter. And, you know, it has nothing to do with doing hair or doing makeup, but chemistry. And we've all been in departments where the chemistry was just off. I like the whole department to have chemistry if possible. You know, because it's always easier to work in an environment that just has some type of energy and chemistry, and everyone can kind of feel each other out and be on the same page, you know?
Absolutely. I think that goes with a little trial and error, as you say. Sometimes it doesn't quite work out. And you're like, ooh, no, okay.
Yeah, sometimes you learn some things, right?
Yeah.
It's like the person you've been dating for 6 months and then you move in together. Yeah.
You're like, oh, you're a different person. You're not who I thought you were. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool. When you mentioned professionalism, I was going to ask you, what are some professional ethics that you feel quite strongly about?
One thing is that a lot of people don't have. A lot of people do, but a lot of people don't have is communication. You know, there's a way to communicate, you know, and there's different climates that different communication is used. So when I say professional, you know, there's a way to communicate and get your point across or ask questions that you would do in a professional setting opposed to at home with your spouse. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's important. And I see it a lot, you know, and it doesn't get you anywhere, you know.
Is that something you feel that you picked up while you're working in the salon?
I would imagine that a lot of that came from the salon because I spent a lot of time in the salon. I also would say it came from my upbringing. My mother is a stickler for, you know what I'm saying, being proper and being professional and presenting yourself in a certain way.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it all speaks volumes to, you know, people judge you on just those things sometimes, you know, so your character and how you handle a situation, you know, professionally, it will distinguish you from others.
Yeah, especially in our line of work with you're just working in such close quarters. You're working for so long each day together with so many people. I mean, you really have to. Yeah.
And the way our business works, I mean, you know, just being professional, showing up on time, doing what you're supposed to do. Like, you know, I've dealt with so many different levels of people.
I think just being reliable, right? I mean, you want to be that person that everyone can rely on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're in that position because obviously they felt like they can rely on you and trust in you. You know what I'm saying? So you have to bring that.
Yeah. You don't want to let them down. Hey, now the amount of time it took you to get into the union, what are you doing with the union? Are you on the board or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a member, but I'm also serving on the executive board, and I'm also a part of our safety task force. So we kind of write the protocols for certain areas of our safety at work.
That's very cool. So now you've gone from not being in the union for years to right in there and getting into it. That's awesome.
Exactly.
You're like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to get in there and do it properly.
Right. But also, you know, like I said, I'm a observer, with my work, and I like to see how things are done. And so
Yeah.
if I'm a part of such a big body, I want to know, how does it work? What's the inner workings of it? What's the process? And so I joined the executive board because I wanted to be instrumental, as well as learn what really happens. How does this really work? How do things get done? You know what I mean? So I became a part of it, and of course I'm learning a lot, and I'm able to also have a voice.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of people and they have a mouth full of complaining, oh, well, this didn't happen and that didn't happen and why this and why that,
Yeah.
but they're not trying to become part of the solution.
Yeah.
You can't complain about something if you're not trying to resolve it.
Yeah, absolutely true. You seem to have such an inquisitive mind that I think it has done well for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean? Just as you say, you just want to know how that's done. You want to get in there and do that. And that's an inquisitive mind. I'm curious what you were like as a child. You must have been all up in there like, oh, what's that? What's that doing?
Yeah,
What's that?
very busy.
So tell me, Stacey, how many pets do you have currently?
Kids?
Have you? No, pets. You wanted to be a vet. I want to know if you have any animals in the house.
Right now I have 2. Well, they are my kids, right? I have 2. and it's funny because they're like night and day. I have a beautiful pit bull, 75-pound, gentle as a lamb pit bull, and then a mean, vicious 5-pound miniature fox terrier.
Why is it always the way? It's like the little one is just always the asshole.
Yeah, that's how it is. It's funny. A little dog complex.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you still have a love for animals. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, my house was like a zoo.
Oh, that's fun.
And I used to groom dogs.
Oh, you did?
Well.
I was going to ask that, actually. I was just like, I wonder if she got into some dog grooming. That's very cool.
Yeah, I did dog grooming for at least 6-7 years. Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that did you think that helped with your human hairdressing at all?
Oh, absolutely, because it gives you experience with every type. I feel like I've had experience with every type of hair texture imaginable.
Yeah.
And then you throw a dog in there too.
Yeah, and so many different shapes and
different haircuts and blendings and textures, and they don't sit still.
I was going to say the moving.
Yeah.
I always feel like working in the salon and having had a lot of kids coming through at times really helped with just adult actors who can't sit still.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to chase them to kind of, do something on set. It's like, I just need to do that one little bit. But ducking and weaving and moving.
Right. The kids were the prelude to that.
Absolutely. Hey, now I want to know, is there one tool or product that you would not like to work without? I understand that there's probably a few, but I just want you to choose one.
I would say for me, since my specialty is barbering, I would not want to work without my clipper.
Yeah.
And my preference is Andis Master.
Okay.
So I feel completely unarmed without that.
Yeah. You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
That's very cool. And so what was the first job that you did where you were working with wigs? And at that point, had you had experience with wigs, or was it something you were just thrown into?
Right. So, I was thrown into it. So Dreamgirls, right? You've seen that.
Yeah.
Eddie decides to do that movie. And of course, I'm working with him. I'm going with him, and I do my research, and I'm like, this is a wig. I'm not going to have a job. Never worked with a wig ever in my life.
Yeah.
And he asked me, and I'm like, yeah, I got it. And I immediately, in my 1 month of prep, went and learned how to do wigs, sat with people who, were pretty prominent in the industry that do wigs. Hey, can I just come sit in and watch? Yeah, sure. And I did that for like a month and
Oh, wow.
put it in my hands, handled it, learned how to block. And I mean, literally never dealt with a wig ever in my life. And the result was Dreamgirls. And I was happy. And I was happy that I took it on because his next movie was a wig, Norbit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's very cool. So it's so nice that also all those people that you went to are willing to help you out. I love that.
yeah, I feel like you got to share the knowledge, A closed hand doesn't get fed. If you hold on to something so tight, nothing can get in. And I'm been pretty blessed to surround myself with people who are open and willing to share and pass on information. And I'm the same way, and I don't know, some people that don't, I feel like maybe they feel threatened in some kind of way, but I'm never going to be them and they're never going to be me.
Yeah.
The Picasso could give us all his paintbrushes and canvases in the world and we'll never do that, Yeah.
So true. So head of department on that was Camille Friend, wasn't it?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, awesome. So you had also throughout shooting had someone who was familiar with wigs who could kind of, if you needed help or had a question, you had some backup there. So that's always helpful too, right?
Yeah, I went to Camille Friends. I went to Irma Kent. She helped me. She's a OG. She's original from back in the day. I went to her. She helped me a lot, and just for security purposes, I had Irma side by side with me, but I didn't even need it. I think it was more so like for me to be comfortable just in case.
Yeah.
And so we ended up just working a system where to save time for Eddie, we would put on the wig together, boom, 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 knock it out, get it done. I'd watch it on set for the most part of the day, and either she would do the latter part of the day or vice versa. And at the end of the night, he wants to get out of that thing, we'd remove it, boom. Irma would take off, I'd stay, I'd clean it, restyle it, block it, whatever I had to do. So we had a cool system. And after that, I was out of here. I was like a rocket ship.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like, I love that you took that job and went and, learned all that you needed to learn. But also, I imagine just doing that day after day while you were shooting.
Yeah.
Would have just stuck in your brain on how to do it, putting it into practice.
Right. There we go. Repetition. Repetition.
And then just being able to troubleshoot and stuff throughout the day, like, oh, he's getting a bit sweaty, it's getting hot, oh, this is pinging up, I need to re-glue that. Just all those little things of
learning as you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So have you had wigs made for stuff? Who do you go to have your wigs made?
For the most part, I use Justin Stafford. Do you know him?
I don't, but I have heard his name.
Yeah, I use Justin. He does a lot of people. He's done most of Will's stuff for Pierce Austin, who works most of the time with Will now on his projects. I do like the stuff, in town or not project based, but Justin, yeah, he did all the stuff for Dolomite. He did a lot of stuff for me for Coming to America. Yeah, I love Justin. He's great. He used to work for Rick Baker long time ago, but he's amazing.
Yeah. I guess that's also a learning curve, right? It's actually figuring out how to get a wig made and asking for that communication of.
Yeah. And then again, the same things come into play. Communication, having chemistry with the person. And he's just I'm mellow and cool and laid back, and he's the same way.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you just have a connection with people and they know this. It's hard when you have a vision in your head to translate that to someone. And it's like Justin amazingly knows where I'm going with stuff. You know what I mean? And he lets you be a part of the whole process, from beginning to end. We do it in steps, and we save certain parts for the end so that we can work on that specifically, like whether it's the hairlines or changing the texture or the colors, so Justin's cool. I like him a lot. And he does a lot of stuff. You check him out, look him up.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love how, like, when you were 12 years old, you probably didn't ever think you were going to a wig maker one day to get wigs made, right?
Never. What you could imagine, I was always in a wig at 12. My mother was a model in New York.
Yeah?
Like I told you, I grew up in this world. So I'm kind of a product of my environment. I had an interest in hair and I kind of mixed the two, the entertainment side of it with my father, the fashion, styling side of it with my mother. And I grew up, at the salon with my mother and at photo shoots and things like that. And I kind of, turned it into one.
Oh, that's so cool. Thanks for chatting today, Stacey. It's been amazing.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I wish you a lot of success on this podcast.
Okay, Last Looks crew, thanks for listening. And remember, if you love it, share it. A quick scroll down and you'll find our show notes. Or maybe you'd like to give your support and leave a 5-star review. Go on, I know you want to. Search the Last Looks podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, whichever one tickles your fancy. And a massive shout out to the husband, Brett Stanley. Without his patience and tech support, this whole podcast situation simply does not happen. And cheers to Liliana Rose for her fabulous voice acting talents. Okay, Last Looks crew, that's a wrap for me. I don't need to be told twice to get out of here, so bye. I'll catch you on the flip side.
That's a wrap, people.